Welcome friends of WildRift to a new episode, WildRift with RiftGuides, and today we're gonna take a look at the tier list for high ELO, but before we get into it, let's take a look at our question of the day. What is your opinion on the legendary queue? Will it save us? And why it won't? Let us know in the comments below. For our first champion, we go for Camille in the top lane. Yes, she has received some nerfs, but, well guys, there are a few changes in the recent patch that made her even better than before. Nah, not really better, but she's still absolutely broken in what she does on the higher levels of skill. With the changes to Grasp, her laning phase has gotten significantly better as Grasp is now a scaling rune. However, with the changes to Conqueror, you might still default to Conqueror, but it will be less potent than before. But the real deal breaker is the next thing. It's about having Triumph and Death Stance to your kit with the Divine Sunderer. Once you assemble those items, you'll simply not die, which is something that all bruisers have in common right now. Have Triumph, have Divine Sunderer, have a Black Cleaver, and Death Dance, and you just won't die anymore. It's just really unskilled and just overbearingly powerful. So let's hope that Riot does something soon, because this is just too much. We can't deal with this because the AD carry role, for example, has no real counterplay to this. But let's briefly talk about why Camille is struggling sometimes. Her early game is significantly weaker than before. The increased passive cooldown, the nerfed second ability, and the scaling first ability really took a toll on her. However, with what she can do and what scaling she has, and with the average game length we now get to, this champion is absolutely bonkers once you reach the item thresholds. But specifically for lane, you have to play a mini-game around Grasp if you're using Grasp. You have to trade efficiently around your passive shield Grasp and your second ability to just poke out the enemy and slowly gain footing in the lane. Once you snowball though and get accelerated to your first item, the Divine Sunderer, things change up very fast. You'll just out-sustain anyone with your first ability as it grants you 2 Divine Sunderer procs, and then it's all about weaving those procs and just killing the enemy. The more levels you gain, the easier it will become. And this is our full tier list for the top lane. Next up comes the big winner of this patch, Shyvana in the jungle role. This champion is one of the easiest champions to pilot, and now all you have to do is farm, farm, farm. You just have to consume your jungle and you'll be happy. The reason for that is because they changed how her passive works. In the past you needed to secure dragons to get the rank ups on your abilities, but now all you need to do is farm, farm, farm. Obviously getting dragons and kills is just better in comparison or just gives them more on top, but you don't need it anymore. All you have to do is farm and you'll get your first ability, second, third and fourth ability evolved by just farming. It's amazing. And here's a quick rundown for that one. Her first ability in dragon form becomes AoE and slows, her second ability becomes a major speed up, her third ability turns into true damage, and her fourth ability is kind of a joke because it just gives her more HP. But if you were struggling with a clear game plan for Shyvana jungle, literally all you have to do is start Crux, do red buff, do raptors, do wolves, do blue, do gromp. You just keep on farming, you just don't care and you scale. Once you've scaled, you'll just run down anything in your way and have a lot of fun, trust me. It is actually super fun. And with the item changes in the game, you can even build bruiser items, such for example the Divine Sunderer if you truly want to, the Death Stance and even run Triumph. And with those items assembled, similar to any other bruiser like Camille, you'll just become invincible, like a behemoth. But here's something you need to understand about the jungle role before we move on. It's not always about just getting objectives. Sometimes you just can't contest them because your team is losing too hard. What you do in these situations is you trade the objective on the other side of the map and the mass farm, counter jungle and get everything you possibly can. Even if your team is flaming, there's not much you can do about this. That's the sad reality of things. And this is our full tier list for the jungle role. Next up on the list comes another rework for the mid lane, Ahri. She just got a slight adjustment for what she does. Number 1, her third ability doesn't increase the damage she deals to targets anymore once she hits the ability. Number 2, her second ability has slightly better logic when it comes to targeting. And number 4, every time she gets a takedown or participated in a takedown in the last 3 seconds, her ultimate gains another charge, which means she dashes around all the time, up to 5 times extra through a fight, which means 8 times by the way. However, there's one thing you have to understand when it comes to Ahri. Ahri is a champion that needs to win in order to have impact. She needs to constantly roam and apply the pressure from lane into the side lanes. Otherwise she won't do too much, and that is the main problem of the champion. This champion is great when winning, but when you're losing she can't do too much. Compared to like other artillery mages like Orianna and Ziggs, they can just wave clear, but Ahri just doesn't do so much. The next issue with her kind of little rework is that she lacks some kind of damage, so if she isn't stomping the lane, which she is designed for in terms of rotation and just pressuring the map, she just feels very lackluster if you're truly honest. However, for the purpose of solo queue, this champion can accelerate the game super fast and make things happen, which is something you want in solo queue. So even though we won't see this champion too much in competitive play, we'll see it enough in solo queue simply for the facts presented. And this is our full tier list for the mid lane. Next up comes the AD carry role, and here we have Evolution. This champion has become a true monster for any AD carry that knows how to use his hands. It's absolutely crazy how much damage this champion can do. If you have like 3, 4 or 5 items, it becomes borderline insane. When you get close to a squishy in the later stages of the game, you will immediately kill them within less than 1 second, which is something you truly want for an AD carry, actually having damage. But now let's quickly break down as to why Lucian is so strong as an AD carry. His laning phase is kinda dominant as he can snipe the enemy with his first ability Piercing Light to poke them for free all the time. Not only that, he also has a gap closer which allows him to just get close to somebody and gun them down as well. Another benefit of him is the second ability, the Ardent Blaze, which increases his movement speed if an ally hits an enemy, which yet again is nice poke damage on top of anything else. And if you combine this with the perfect ability to weave an auto attacks between spells, because Lucian has a double hit mechanic after every spell, you quickly realize how much damage this champion can do. For runes in this case, you can either run Conqueror or Kraken Slayer. Kraken Slayer will grant you a slightly better lane, but obviously a little bit worse of late game because you'll lack the AD from the rune itself. But if you truly want to dominate lane, then Kraken Slayer will be your go-to rune, probably paired with Champion, just to make sure you're stomping. Because if you're stomping in solo queue, you're most likely going to win whatsoever, because that's what solo queue is about. Just stomp lane and stomp it so hard that the map just gets taken over just by you. And this is our full tier list for the AD carry role. Last but surely not least, we have the support role, and here we have Karma, the all-time favorite. Getting nerf after nerf that doesn't really matter because it's completely meaningless. First they reduce her mantra first ability's damage by a little bit, then they increase their first ability's mana cost and reduce the shielding a little bit. That isn't what makes the champion so unbelievably broken. It's number 1, the ultimate ability, and number 2, the tether, the root ability of her second ability. You can just root down anything and just punish people for trying to play the game, which is unbelievably unfair and broken, because you can always guarantee that all spells of yours hit. And if you think about a mage and can guarantee that all mage spells hit, you already know what happens to you. Just picture yourself playing against an Orianna, and this Orianna hits you with all of her spells, and she can guarantee every single time, 100% of the time, that she's gonna hit. How broken is that? It is absolutely bonkers. And now let's talk about Karma's lane. If you want to dominate lane, what you can do is you can start with the Ruby Crystal and the Champion rune. All you have to do is just walk up and hit people with auto attacks over and over and over again. You can even start with your second ability to make sure you get an early all-in, because the primary goal here is to use our HP pool with the Ruby Crystal and the Champion rune, which increases the damage of our auto attacks, to really dominate lane. Otherwise, if you don't want to go down that route, you can start with an Amplifying Tomb, but I don't recommend it. You can always start with the Ruby Crystal and just sit on it just to dominate lane in solo queue. It's just the best you can do. Nonetheless, I always recommend you go full AP with this champion, because the damage is just absolutely absurd and too crazy, and as I told you, you can guarantee that all of your spells are going to hit, which is just too overbearing. So give this champion a try and let me know how it went. And this is our full tier list for the support role. You want more Rift Guides? Then tune in for the next time when we show you even better stuff. See ya.